So welcome to the show. Epic begins with one step forward. I'm your host, Aurora Winter, and I'm here with the amazing Xander Sprague, author, speaker, amazing entrepreneur. And today we're going to be covering such an exciting topic, not yet. These two words can change your life when used in the right circumstances. But before we get into the topic of not yet, let's hear how Xander's brave, bold decision to step into being a world-class speaker is going in only week number 7 of his declaration that he's going for it. Pandemic or no pandemic, he is on fire. So tell us about how things have been going week number 7 of you turning on the gas with this goal.
Week number 7. Well, I like to focus on the positive. So let me first start off with stuff that I didn't get done this week or didn't work so well. So I need to do some updates to my website, and I just have been putting it off, and it didn't happen this week. So trying to be gentle with myself. Going and doing work on your website when you're doing it yourself is, as you might know, can be nerve-wracking, because if you mess something up, you can mess everything up. So,
I've done that before. Everything crashes.
Right. Or, oh, let me try and do this. So, but really what I need to put up is just, some text stuff. So it theoretically isn't hard. I just need to go do that. And I had intended to see if I could get a video opening find some music and have a video opening created for Epic Begins with One Step Forward. And I just didn't do that. So that's the stuff that wasn't working well. Now, what was working well is I am on a roll with getting, doing my own kind of, just like you and I, but doing my own additional episodes. So I've done 2 with my friend Warren. I've got 1 set up for tomorrow with my friend Heidi Horsley. We'll be talking about Epic Unexpected. She lost her brother. She's one of the leading experts on sibling loss also. So I'm talking to her tomorrow. I've reached
number 2. You mean she's the number 2 expert on that?
Yes.
After you.
Yes. And then I've reached out to a friend of mine who's a actor in Hollywood. He's in movies, on TV and stuff. Just because I know we just happened to, he commented on a photo of mine, and I'm like, oh man, it'd be great to talk to him. So it's being open to who can I get, and the conversations.
I love it. That's really, like, you're really on a roll with that. So not only has this spoken author taken the work and the tedium of staring at the blank page out of your next book, but you have stepped into being a podcast host and interviewing a bunch of people. You're on a roll. Well done. That's huge.
Yeah. And I really love this ability to create a episode for my YouTube channel and take the audio and make it the podcast. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's great. And you can use Anchor potentially to host it. And they make it easy to monetize your podcast too.
Yeah, well, look at
all of that. I know. And they distribute it to all the channels. They were bought by Spotify. So, well, there were a couple of things that you didn't get done. You didn't get the progress on your website that you had hoped, and you didn't get the video audio intro done. Were those just time issues, or was there some other stumbling block?
Procrastination. I'm just going to own it. I just didn't. It wasn't necessarily that I didn't have time. I just thought about it and didn't do it. So
you didn't do it yet. So with that note, Why don't we dive into the topic for today,
Absolutely.
which is not yet, which I really love this topic. And I love those two words. They're actually so powerful and so delightful. And yet I think we use them very, very rarely. When I lived in Indonesia when I was a teenager, and my parents were in Indonesia on a Canadian International Development Agency project, a CETA project, you go into the market, and in my, very poor Indonesian, I ask a woman, did she have any children? This
Yeah.
would be like a wizened woman, a grandmotherly age. And she would not say no, tidak. She would say belum, which means not yet. And I just loved the opening that provided for all kinds of things. Are you married? Not yet. Did you get your MBA? Not yet. Have you spoken to your audience full of 10,000 people? Not yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the optimism. And in preparation, I was like, okay, well, what does, kind of what's the definition of not yet, right? And according to dictionary.com, used to describe something that is expected to happen but has not for the moment. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I love the optimism that not yet. It's so positive and it's so hopeful.
Well, as the god of enthusiasm, two words that are positive and hopeful would be right up your alley. I think
Exactly.
it's also a great shield for those of us like you who've got big, bold dreams and are, living large and really going for a massively transformative purpose. And then if people say, well, have you made your first million, or have you done, X, Y, or Z, instead of no, which feels like a little kick of shame or self-doubt, not yet, maintains the optimism and confidence.
It does. And I think it tells people who may be the negative Nellies in your life that it's in progress.
Yeah.
And so they need to back off.
Those wet blankets can steal so many dreams.
Well, they can. And famous quote from Eleanor Roosevelt is, no one can make you feel bad without your permission. And that's so true.
I love that quote. I remember the first time I came across it, I was like, that can't be right. That's that person's fault that I feel like crap. That was a long time ago, but she's so right.
Think about it this way, Aurora. If you're walking down the street and some complete stranger says something negative about the jacket you have on, oh, that's really ugly, and you don't know this person at all, probably doesn't bother you at all because you don't know them and their opinion doesn't really matter. And yet, if your brother said to you, oh, that jacket's really ugly, it would really affect you.
Especially if it was the gay brother. The scientist brother has got no taste.
No, I know. But what I'm saying is someone whose opinion matters to you,
yeah,
all of a sudden, even though it's the same exact comment, and you could deal with both of them the same way, you just say, oh my gosh, like they don't like it, they don't. And doing what I'm doing, there are a lot of people who don't understand, and people who, for right or for wrong, look at success monetarily.
Yeah.
And certainly I am fully
only one dimension.
Make this monetarily rewarding for myself so I can help more people and do more work. But the fact that I can't say, oh, yes, I'm doing this and I've made X, doesn't mean that I'm not successful. I'm creating all of this content.
Although I have a big beef with all the people online who say, oh, I've made $1 million. I want to hear about, the first time that you came across not yet in a second, but I just want to rant for a second because
Sure.
so many people online talk about, their gross figures. They brought in $1 million or they did X, Y, and Z. Who cares? You can bring in $1 million and spend 1.2 and you're 200,000 underwater, Nobody talks about their net. And also you can make $1 million and have an absolutely miserable life because you're working 80-hour weeks doing something you don't love. Like you were saying, Xander, I think success needs to be defined by each person, and it's far more than just material success. I wouldn't want to have material success and no health or no relationships or no joy or no meaning. And for you and for me as well, creativity and making this podcast, it's so much fun. It fills me up with the joy. And you're going to turn it into a book, and you're speaking, like it's high leverage as well. Anyway, so that rant, and I even have friends, they were in a mastermind group with me, and everybody was focused. Mastermind leader was focusing us on making $1 million, and a number of them did, and then they would share in the next call, well, I did it, and I've got $12.95 in my bank account because I had 7 salespeople and this staff and that turnover, and well, that sounds like misery to me. Anyway, back to you.
No,
When was
totally.
the first time that not yet came up for you in your life, and why did you decide to devote a chapter to it in your upcoming book?
Well, the first time I actually sort of read about this was reading Robert Fulghum's, and I was trying to find which of his books, because he wrote a couple books, but the book he's most the two books, it came out of one or two books, either All I Ever Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, or his second book, It Was on Fire When I Lay Down on It. Both excellent books.
Excellent titles too.
But he talks about not yet, and how in the Sufi culture, which in Indonesia there's Sufism, so makes sense that part of the world, the concept of not yet. And I remember when I read that, it really, really resonated with me. And that was, gosh, when I was in my 20s. And I, as you say, I'm the god of enthusiasm. So I like that concept of there's many things that I'm going to do in my life, but they may not have happened right now.
Yeah.
And I'm working towards stuff. And it also it takes the pressure off, I think.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I like about it, one of the things that Buckminster Fuller said is that he's a verb. He doesn't know what he is, but he's a verb. And there's something about this not yet that reminds us that we're not a static thing. We're not a noun. We're verbs. We're in action. We're in motion. We're evolving. We're changing. We're growing. And so not yet reminds me like we're more like a fish swimming in a stream than a rock that just sits there, right? And so I love, there's a couple of people I listen to, like Joe Rogan said this recently, and Tom Bilyeu said it as well, the Impact Theory host. Joe Rogan said, he'd love to live 5 lifetimes because he'd like to learn, multiple languages and do different sports and try different things. But then he added, but I've taught myself to think that way. And I'm like, that's an important way to think. And not yet reminds me like, oh, we could choose another chapter. We can write another book. You're launching a whole new career as a speaker. And apparently you're launching a whole new thing as a podcast host now too.
I mean, and yeah, and not yet allows me to fearlessly go out and create all this content. And I believe the audience will find me. I believe that my YouTube channel will grow and that more people will find the videos and find this and be fascinated by watching our journey. And so the fact that I don't have, 5,000 subscribers or you know, whatever, or my podcast has been downloaded 50,000 times in a week or something, is fine.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not yet. It's going to happen. I
Not
need
yet.
to just put that out, and I think that's one of the big things. Is you and I've talked a little about um, it having to be perfect, and I can't put this out until it's polished. Writing the book, I'm doing this the way I work best, leaning into what I do best, which is talking.
Hey, you'll
And I'm
like this. You'll like this. I came up with this today.
okay.
Speaking is the new writing.
There you go.
Because you're not just speaking, to yourself. You're speaking to me. It's alive. It's a conversation. You're engaged. I'm engaged. And you're writing your book by speaking it out.
Yeah.
And it's easy for you. So speaking is the new writing. I came up with that today. I must confess, Audible's got listening is the new reading. So I was riffing off that. I like that. Speaking is the new writing, because why should you have to type it? That doesn't make any sense.
Being that I was a history major, let's just take a moment and observe history, which is to say that until 1600, right, when Gutenberg invented the printing press, okay, 90% of everything was a oral history, was spoken, not written down.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
And
in the 1400s, but
whatever, but still there's
that's right. So why do we think that the only proper way to write is by typing on our computer or writing long
right.
hand? People didn't even know how to read and write, or they didn't have computers or typewriters.
And then to sort of take that one step further and really put it into perspective. In 1990, I was fortunate enough to go over to Australia to study, and I was studying settler history, or if you want to call it white history, white Australian history, but I also was studying Aboriginal history. Now, the Aborigines have been around in Australia for 60,000 years. They are an orally based culture. Everything is stories. Mm-hmm. The concept of the dream time, which is how the earth came to be, is an oral history. What I learned through that, and my professor was Aboriginal, and I learned so much from the experiences that he exposed me to about history. And it really changed how I think about history, because everything that I was reading about Aboriginal history was something that was written down by a missionary who was interpreting what they were being told and wrote it down. And then once it was written down, that's the way that happened. As we all know, you and I could observe the same event and have completely different takes on what happened.
And that's even if we didn't have an agenda to have a different interpretation.
Right. Yeah. But once we write it down and we read it, we've all been conditioned to take it as gospel. That's the way this is. And
that's for sure.
Huh?
That's the power of writing things down.
Absolutely.
Or capturing them in some fixed form. I think that also applies to audios and video.
Right. And so I think that speaking is the new writing that's awesome, but it's actually the way it's been for
right. It was
a few 100,000, if not a few million years, so it's like,
hey, with your history background, you might know this because I read, but I haven't got the exact info. Maybe you have it though. It's so interesting that in the oral cultures in places like Australia, or maybe it was Africa,
Sure.
they had to memorize the songs like absolutely perfectly because it would guide them through the Sahara Desert or guide them through the landscape. And it was like a map. And so they had to memorize not just the gist of the story, but the actual oral um, um, tradition was memorized in song so that it was like very precise.
Well, right. Songs most definitely were. There were certain songs that absolutely in oral cultures were there to help tell a particular story with particular facts. However, in our own lives, we always have stories, family stories, whatever, that as we tell them, uh, things change a little, and not necessarily intentionally or for the bad, but you may emphasize more of a particular story. You and I have a fabulous story of being in uh,
San Miguel de Allende, Mexico.
in Mexico,
Yeah, San
right?
Miguel de Allende.
And we will, as the years go on, we will tell the stories of going to the the pyramids
Right.
in the driving rain and all of that. And we might emphasize the wind more one time and the rain another time. Both are factual events, but the degree of wind, the cold, how cold we were.
Yeah, that was a really great trip.
That was an awesome
That was
trip.
like,
Thank
it
you.
was like my high point. I'm like, that was February 2020. After that, I'm like, yay, I'm going to do exotic events with awesome people. This is like I'm going to double down on that plan. And then 1 month later, coronavirus, and they're like, all events canceled.
Yeah, definitely.
But I am going to do those events, just not yet.
Exactly. Not yet. They're not. It's not that you're not doing them and they're not going to happen. It's just not yet.
Yeah. So how would you recommend that people have these two handy words in their pocket? Can you give some other examples of using not yet to
Oh,
empower you?
sure. So I thought about it, and I have kind of I wrote down things in my life that are not yet.
Okay.
Okay. Best-selling author.
Coming soon.
That is coming. I know that, but it's not right now. Not yet.
Yeah.
Being a guest on the Today Show and on Ellen, if
Mm-hmm.
Ellen DeGeneres' show is still around. But again, two places that's going to happen. I know it is.
Yeah.
Speak to a stadium full of people. You mentioned my talking to 10,000 people, right? Not yet. That's happening.
Yeah.
Get my pilot's license. I'm fascinated by flying. I've always wanted my private pilot's license. I just haven't felt. I've done an incredible amount of research. I've flown on my X-plane flight simulator for hundreds of hours. I feel fully confident that if the whole entire airline crew were to somehow have catastrophic sickness, I could land a 747 at San Francisco. No, not really, but I've landed 747s.
Might be our best bet.
Exactly. So,
well, that helps me like already because I don't know if you know this, but I did part of my pilot's license.
Right.
So I wrote one of the exams and I've got some of the hours. And when people ask me, oh, do you have your pilot's license? I usually say, no, I didn't finish it. With like, as if I could never. But the truth is like, not yet.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten it yet.
And
I like that so much better. It doesn't have that like kick of permanent failure. I could finish it later.
You could. And I think, I know I've done enough research to understand that the proper way to get a pilot's license is you really have to know that you have the time to be able to fly like twice a week and have that time. We all have excuses as, oh, I don't have time. It is simply making time in your week to say, this is important enough that I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Um,
and right now it's not, because
and
I'm
right now,
with you.
right now it's not. So, but again, not yet.
Yeah.
And again, here's the other thing. Some not yets won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. I think that optimism of saying, not yet. You might go back and get your pilot's license. You might not. But if you
Maybe in
don't,
another lifetime.
exactly. Exactly.
But I love that it keeps the door open until my last breath. You
It
know,
does.
I think that's
And even if you're lying on your deathbed, oh, I'm reviewing my life, right?
You better be there.
If I say, oh, I never got my pilot's license, I didn't give up on the dream. I just, perhaps there were other things that I wanted to do even more.
That's right. Well, I like that it emphasizes the choice aspect, which is empowering rather than the failure aspect of like a harsh no. The other thing I think this can relate to is I was listening to Mel Robbins on one of her podcasts recently. I love her. She's the 5-second rule lady.
Yeah.
But she was talking about the science of visualization and how important it is to visualize the future you want. And you know how it says in the Bible, you know, pray, giving thanks, you know, as if you've already received it. And sometimes that trips me up a bit because I'm like, well, I haven't achieved that yet. How can I, you know, lean into that? I think you're not yet is so handy because it's like, it's not a no, it's just evolving. So I can give thanks right now for you becoming a best-selling author with the book that you're working on right now with my support. Yeah, you haven't become a best-selling author yet, but it's inevitable.
Right.
In my heart and mind with this process.
Absolutely. And my journey, my success is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And exactly how it's going to look, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I certainly spend a lot of time visualizing what it is that I want. And there's so much, as I'm reading, You're a Badass.
Oh, yeah.
Just talking about like everything in the universe is already there. You just gotta pay attention and you just gotta, and we have to believe in ourselves. I really think not yet is so, it's a hug for yourself.
Yeah. It's a hug for yourself. I like that. Well, you can't reach out your mental hand to grasp something unless you are aligned with it. And sometimes what keeps us from being aligned with it is because we haven't done the work yet and we don't deserve it, honestly. Or sometimes it's just self-doubt. But sometimes we just need to be reminded that the not yet is a little bridge to a little bit more time, right? So I like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like any journey, some journeys are really short. Yeah. My journey to Safeway to buy eggs, okay?
Pretty short.
Your journey to get your MBA, my journey to get my master's in mental health counseling, a bit of a longer journey.
Yeah.
But you never doubted the path that you were on, but you also realized that you weren't getting your mass, you know, your MBA just like that. There was time and work that's involved.
I had to have some patience. Well, you're talking about journeys and you're talking about our journey. So I feel like I should pop in here because we've mentioned on a couple of previous episodes that I set myself that new high bar goal of 100K in 100 days, which I ticked off for the first 100 days. And today I'm in this, and now I'm in the second 100-day period. And I just got a $90,000 deal signed today. So
yay for you.
Looking good for the 100K in 100 days to
Well, I was going to
ongoing
say, I
journey.
mean, you're literally 90% there.
Yeah, exactly.
And knowing you, that final 10K, probably not that hard. In fact, it probably just happened or something.
Probably.
Um,
Probably this week.
so yeah, and that congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I think, yeah, I mean, not yet is, gosh, I mean, when I just think about it, I love being able to say that, especially doing what I'm doing, which it doesn't have a track record, which for a lot of people, when I say I'm a motivational speaker and author, um, I don't know why, people have sort of, they're like, oh, so you're not really working. And I'm like, no, I'm really
I'm
working.
working really hard.
And then like I mentioned my YouTube channel, and then someone came back and said, well, you don't have a lot of subscribers. I said, not yet. I said,
Yeah.
like, I am not a celebrity right now. It's not like, oh, hey, I have a YouTube channel and instantly have a whole bunch of subscribers. I
Well, it
said,
takes time and it takes putting out content. But what I like about this plan is YouTube is the second biggest search engine after Google. I'm
yeah,
on YouTube all the time. I listen to almost all my podcasts on YouTube or sometimes on Spotify, but usually on YouTube because I occasionally like to look at the people. And it's just really a matter of continuing to put out content. And we're building all this content, which you haven't posted most of it at all yet,
right.
because we have a post, launch plan. But the second biggest search engine is YouTube. And then the third is actually Amazon. So when your book is launched, I know you've got a book up there already, but that is another way for people to find you organically without you, paying per click on Google or for Facebook.
Absolutely, but it's also this whole process is learning, right?
Yeah.
And there was, I believe I believe that it was Zig Ziglar, who was a awesome motivational speaker. I had the pleasure to meet him many years ago.
Really?
I did.
Oh, he's a
Um,
legend.
huh? Oh,
He's a
absolutely.
legend. Yeah.
And it may not be him, so if I'm misquoting, but I believe it was Zig Ziglar said it was a 7-year overnight success. And I think that's, look, I certainly hope this doesn't take 7 years. However, the point is, it takes time, it takes consistency, it takes, you build your audience and you put your product out there, and that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm excited about, is creating the content, right? I guess I just know in my heart that if I'm just consistent in putting up the content, to quote from Field of Dreams, if I build it, they will come. If I create it, they will listen.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about doing it this way is you're leaning into, you're discovering your voice, your authentic voice, and you're leaning into that more and more. And the 7-year overnight success, I mean, you've been working on becoming a more powerful speaker and a more skilled coach or mentor or consultant or mental health professional, for a long time, for more than 7 years.
Yes.
And you're, when you stand at the front of the room holding the mic, you're confident. Everybody in the room feels better and uplifted, and you command attention with ease and joy and grace. And it's fun. Like, you add so much fun to a room. That's very difficult for most people. I know it comes naturally to you, and you've also had a lot of time to build that skill. I mean, literally, you've laid down the mile and built that capacity, and your confidence is based upon real life feedback that works. People like listening to you. So
yeah, absolutely. And I know one of the things, Aurora, that you're excited about being on this journey is, for at least a decade, you're like, oh my God, superstar, like go grab
Like
it.
shaking you almost, yeah.
And I appreciate your consistent encouragement, right? And it's not that I haven't seen it or believed it, but it's just sort of, again, sometimes it's not yet. It's right now not yet. It's just not the time to go do that.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, because I know you so well, the only reason why this is not a good time for you to launch your speaking career is the world pandemic and the coronavirus, but everything else was actually lined up.
It was.
You were ready.
And to use the pandemic as an excuse not to do what I'm so ready to do, I'm who cares? I'm still doing it.
Well, it may be in some paradoxical way, we'll see, a good time because people are eager for encouragement. You're very encouraging. They all could use the God of enthusiasm, that's for sure. Your energy is in the sound wave of these files and will be in your book. And people are reading more and listening to more audiobooks and listening to more podcasts. Because they want distraction or information or inspiration, and you provide all of those things. So it could surprisingly be a really good time for that part. You're speaking, you might have to be on Zoom for a little while. Although I do see that some TV shows are launching up again. Joe Rogan's been testing people, and various other hosts are having live guests. They just, pick a test.
Definitely.
So
And then
yeah.
but one more thing that I wanted to share about my not yet.
Yes.
The last thing I came up with is that my work helps 1 million plus people.
Ah, beautiful.
And for me, I'm so dedicated to helping people to really embrace the choices that they have in their life, and for them to embrace their own epic journey, and for them to take that one step forward to start to go on that journey. And because it is so powerful to know that, sort of say, I'm doing something epic for me.
Yeah.
And all and the one thing I want the audience to understand is epic can be really big, but epic could be something as simple as feeling more confident when you have to stand in front of an audience, or in speaking up at work, and you've always sort of been timid in it, and it makes you scared, but you have a lot to say and you want to share more. That could be your epic journey. Your epic journey could be, I have a family, let's say there's a family history of maybe not so healthy eating and high blood pressure and diabetes, and you look and say, I don't want that for myself. So your epic journey could be, I'm choosing to go on this epic change that my family won't understand, but I'm doing it for me.
I have to share, since you scolded me on a previous podcast episode.
Oh, the
I
ice
have
cream?
not had any ice cream or frozen yogurt in the house, which is epic. So
it is epic.
Posted, but you're so right. Not having the temptation there is really good.
You can't eat what's not there.
I know. So I've been following your wisdom on that.
And I'm sorry if I scolded too much, but it is true. And again, my point is, all of our epic journeys are different. Mine is this big, bold thing because that's what I want. perhaps have a sickness that 90%, 99% of the world doesn't have, which is I want a microphone and talk in front of people as often as possible.
Yeah,
And you're right.
There's a little magnetic spot in your hand that the mic belongs.
Exactly. And I like the fact that instead of fighting that Aurora when I come to the events, I just have my own mic because
I know. It's just like that's Sanders' mic. All right. So these are really great tips. I think this is like just the lightest feeling one that we've done. Like this whole not yet. I'm going to have that going in my heart and mind for the rest of the day. I'd love people to make that list that you suggested of the things that they have not done yet. You know, your not yet list, which is so much more fun than a to-do list. What other tips do you have for people to really lean into this concept of not yet?
Okay, well, you actually took the first one, which is make a list of not yet of your not yet's. Really good.
I just repeated what you said earlier.
I know. No, well, I made a list for myself, and then I'm like, well, what's my tip? Well, make a list. Duh. Good enough for me. It's really good enough for you. Create a choose one or two things and create a plan for your not yet. Like, because it's great to say, I really want to go get my pilot's license, or I want to be a best-selling author. But if I don't have a plan to write a book, I can't be a best-selling author, right?
Kind of necessary to have the book.
Kind of necessary, right? Kind of necessary to take flight lessons to get your license, right? So make a plan. That you don't have to have a plan for every single thing. There are things that you just say, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Great.
Right. And you can have it on your not yet list without it being like actively sitting there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And there are certainly the things that perhaps you want to have children or whatever, but you realize that that's not something that's you're going to do right this second, right? Mm-hmm. So it's fine. It's on there. You know it's there. And here's the great thing. When we say it out loud, when we proclaim to the universe the things that we want in our life, it's funny how stuff actually comes to us.
It's so funny. It is really, it's
Imagine that.
Amazing. I've noticed that with my 100K in 100 days challenge to myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to say is, in the face of adversity, remember not yet, because it can be your lifesaver, your life preserver.
Yeah.
Right. Certainly, we're in a time where there's not lots of sunshine and joy. In fact, right now it's a little lighter, but it's been dark as dusk and smoky and ashy, and there's fires everywhere here in California and any number of things. But just keep in mind that, it's not everything is sunshine and rainbows, but when it isn't as good, not yet is such a buoy, a life ring, a life preserver to go, not yet.
Yeah. Okay. Even your shoulders went down when you said it. I could just imagine everybody doing that. Okay, those are some really wonderful tips. I'm going to make my not yet list. That is really cool. Am I cutting you off, or have you completed your tips?
No, I have no more words on my paper.
Well,
Not to say I don't have more words.
There better be a couple more words, because in a minute we're going to come back and find out what next week's podcast is going to be about. And before we hear that from Xander, because we're not going to hear that yet.
No, not yet.
Please go to xanderspragg.com. Go visit his YouTube channel as well. And when you visit xanderspragg.com, you're going to get some amazing free gifts, including a PDF that you can download and print, put it on your fridge, put it on your mirror, put it in your car, put it in your notebook, that will remind you of the fact that Epic begins with one step forward. This is so encouraging. So you're going to want to take advantage of that and some other goodies at xanderspragg.com. And you can also get your Thought Leader Starter Library absolutely for free at my website, which is thoughtleaderlaunch.com. As you can see, I love launching thought leaders like Xander. So go to thoughtleaderlaunch.com and take advantage of those absolutely free goodies. The other benefit will be that as Xander's book is launched and he has a live cast coming up for his book or this, that, and the other thing, we'll make sure that you get the best deals and that you get the advance notice of these things that are coming up fairly soon. So Xander, what are we going to be talking about in the next podcast?
In the next episode, I believe that what I would love for us to talk about, I think you're going to like this one.
Okay.
Embrace how you work, lean into your strength.
I love this one. Embrace how you work and lean into your strengths. Absolutely. I mean, doing this with you is such a joy, and it was part of my, okay, Aurora, 100K in 100 days. Well, what are you good at? What do you like to do?
Exactly. And for me, absolutely. How do I work? I talk. The books that I've written, I did by dictating.
Yeah.
And then I had something to work with, and then, I go in and do, editing and stuff like that. But when I first started to try and write, when I tried to write my first book, I sat down and it was so hard. I was staring at blank pages or a half a page, and I was like, God, this sucks. And then I just had this epiphany. Well, you don't have to do it that way.
Yeah.
Go in, I got a tape recorder, I dictated what I wanted to say, I had someone transcribe it, then I had something to work with. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to our taking time, and we can both share, leaning into how we work. And,
Yeah, I love that.
And
writing, especially for you. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You said we could both lean into.
And also trying to, if you don't know what your strengths are, like figure out where your strength lies. Because I can tell you that doing this, although it's work, it just doesn't feel like work. The episodes I'm doing with other people that will be on my YouTube channel are not work. I don't look at it and go, oh my gosh, I have to go do. No, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's great. I get to.
Yeah, you get to instead of you have to. One more question. I'm curious, how are you finding this process, the spoken author process that we're doing together, the same or different from just recording into your tape recorder yourself? What difference does it make to you that I'm here with you, asking you questions and engaging?
So much. I mean, first of all, I think so much richer because when you're just dictating, it's just asynchronous. It's me talking, then I get it back, and then I'm like, wow, I don't know. It's so much. This is so much better because I think there's a lot deeper content because we're interacting. And then what I end up with is stuff that as I'm looking at it after I've put it through the script and I have the transcript, so many more launching points because we've had a conversation and stuff I wouldn't have necessarily thought about if I were just dictating myself. But because we're having this conversation, I'm like, oh, wow, I can expand on that, or I hadn't thought of that. And I don't know, the best part is I start each episode with you. We have a subject, but we have no idea where we're going.
I feel like it's like, when I write or dictate and I'm just writing myself, I feel like I'm on a highway. But when I'm speaking with you, it's like it's 3D. It like a fireworks, like it explodes in all these different interesting directions and different colors. Does that seem about right to you, or would you have a different metaphor?
No, absolutely. No, you're right. It is like going down a highway. It's very mile markers and page, oh, another page and another, whereas here you're right. It's 3D. It's all the axes and it's fun because you're like, not quite. I know where we're starting, but who knows what the destination and what each episode is. And for the audience who's listening, you're like, oh my God, these are so long. Yeah, they're long because you want to know what, we're having a lot of fun. And
Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting. It's richer. Well, that was a great episode.
oh
Not
my God, so much
yet.
fun.
So again, don't forget to visit sanderspragg.com. If you're listening to this on audio, check out his YouTube channel so you can see his beautiful smiling face and actually see the God of enthusiasm in person. So
Right.
to wrap this up, I'm Aurora Winter. My website is Thought Leader Launch, and you are?
I'm Xander Sprague. My website is xandersprague.com, and my YouTube channel is Choice Champion. So go find me.
Woohoo! All right, talk to you next week.
Talk to you later.